There's a particular kind of quiet that lives in your living room on a Saturday afternoon. Outside, the world hums with plans and gatherings. Inside, you're wrapped in something softer, a blanket, a book, the low murmur of rain against glass, and for a moment, the world asks nothing of you. But then the phone lights up, an invitation, a question about plans, and beneath your ribs something tightens. Not excitement, not exactly dread, just resistance. You've learned to call yourself boring, antisocial, maybe even broken, because shouldn't you want to go? Shouldn't the thought of connection fill you with warmth instead of weight? What if I told you that your preference for home isn't a flaw in your wiring, but a signal worth listening to? Psychologists have a phrase for what happens when the world outside feels consistently more demanding than nourishing. Social threshold sensitivity. It's not introversion exactly, though they overlap. It's deeper. It's what happens when your nervous system has learned, through thousands of small moments, that being seen requires being on. That connection comes with conditions. That rest is something you earn by first proving your usefulness to others. And so home becomes more than a place. It becomes a sanctuary where you can finally put down the performance. This isn't weakness. It's not pathology. It's intelligence shaped by survival. Your body choosing the environment where it can finally exhale. Here's what often happens in the early years. You grow up in a home where love feels conditional. Not always, not dramatically, but enough that you learn to read the room before you enter it. You learn which version of yourself earns warmth and which invites withdrawal. Maybe your parent was dealing with their own wounds, depression, anxiety, emotional unavailability. Maybe they were physically present but emotionally elsewhere. Or maybe the love was there but only when you were good, quiet, helpful, easy. And so you learned early, connection requires vigilance. For many women, there's another layer. You absorbed cultural scripts that said your job was to tend, to smooth, to make others comfortable. Not through explicit instruction, but through 1,000 small moments of praise when you did, silence when you didn't. The girl who anticipates needs gets called thoughtful. The one who sets boundaries gets called selfish. And here's the thing. You weren't wrong to adapt. You were surviving. You were finding a way to belong in the only world you knew. But what keeps you safe as a child becomes a cage as an adult. Your brain built itself around these truths. The amygdala, that almond-shaped sentinel deep in your brain, learned to scan for relational threat. Not lions or fires, but the subtle shift in someone's tone. The pause before they respond. The feeling of having asked for too much. Your prefrontal cortex, that reasoning center up front, learned to suppress your own needs before they could become problems. To solve for everyone else's comfort first. And your nervous system? It learned that calm at home is safer than stimulation out there, that solitude is predictable, that you can only truly rest when no one is watching, waiting, needing. This isn't damage, it's adaptation. But adaptations built for one world don't always serve another. And now, as an adult, your body still speaks the language of that early learning, even when the threat has changed. You might find yourself over-functioning in relationships, anticipating needs before they're spoken, managing emotions that aren't yours to carry. You might apologize reflexively, even when you've done nothing wrong, because sorry greases the wheels of connection. You might notice that joy feels unsafe, that letting your guard down in public spaces triggers a low-grade anxiety you can't quite name. You might wear calm like armor, becoming the steady one, the capable one, while your own needs pile up in a corner you've learned not to look at. You might feel guilt every time you set a boundary, as if saying no is proof of some fundamental selfishness. You might mistake productivity for worth, filling your home hours with tasks because rest without justification feels like laziness. You might find that invitations drain you before you even arrive, the anticipation heavier than the event itself. You might realize you've built a life where being needed is safer than being wanted, because need is concrete, want is vulnerable. You might notice you're more comfortable giving than receiving, because receiving means being seen, and being seen means being evaluated. You might discover that you've been mistaking anxiety for intuition, that "I don't want to go" gets reframed as "I'm just tired today," over and over, until you forget what genuine desire sounds like. Here's the cost that no one names. You become lonely in crowded rooms. You erase yourself so thoroughly that even when people love you, you're not sure they love you, or just the version you've learned to show them. Connection starts to feel like performance. Home becomes the only place you recognize yourself. And slowly, without meaning to, you build a life that feels safe but small. But here's the reframe, and I need you to hear this. What saved you then constrains you now. The vigilance that kept you safe as a child, the constant monitoring, the self-suppression, the preference for control over risk, it worked. You survived. You found a way to belong. But you're not that child anymore. And the world you're avoiding isn't the world you grew up in. You have choices now. Agency, the ability to leave spaces that don't honor you. And that means your preference for home might not be about what you need, but about what you've never had permission to ask for outside of it. 1. Witnessing over fixing. The first step isn't action, it's recognition. You're allowed to name what happened without minimizing it. Inconsistent care shaped you. Emotional responsibility landed on your shoulders too early. The world taught you to shrink, and you did what you had to do. Here's the sentence you get to retire. It wasn't that bad. Because if it shaped how you move through the world, it was significant. Full stop. Validation isn't self-pity, it's the ground from which real change grows. 2. Body first. Your body holds the pattern, so healing starts there, not in your thoughts. Try this when anxiety rises. Orienting. Without moving your head, let your eyes slowly scan the room. Notice 5 things you can see. Let your gaze rest on something that feels neutral or pleasant. This tells your amygdala, no immediate threat here. Your nervous system begins to recalibrate. Long exhale, 60 seconds. Breathe in for 4 counts. Breathe out for 6. Just 3 cycles. The longer exhale activates your vagus nerve, the brake pedal on your stress response. You're teaching your body that it's safe to settle. Hand over heart 90 seconds. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the warmth. Feel the rise and fall. This is bilateral stimulation, left brain, right brain integration. It's also the touch you might have needed as a child. You're allowed to give it to yourself now. These aren't luxuries, they're recalibration tools. Small, repeatable, effective. Boundary scripts. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the clarity that makes real connection possible. Here's language that works. With friends, I'm not available this week, but I'd love to catch up next month. Not I can't or I'm too busy, both of which invite negotiation. Just clear, kind truth. With family, I need to take this one slower. I'll let you know what works for me. You're not asking permission. You're stating reality. At work, I can take that on, but I'll need to deprioritize X, which matters more. You're naming the trade-off before you overextend. In romance, I need some quiet time to recharge. It's not about you, it's about how I resource myself. This names the need without apology or defense. With yourself. I'm allowed to want what I want, even if it disappoints someone. Say it out loud. Let it reshape your nervous system's understanding of safety. The universal boundary. Let me think about that and get back to you. This buys you time. It lets you consult your actual wants instead of your reflex to accommodate. 4. Language swap. The words you use shape the reality you inhabit. Old script. I feel guilty for saying no. New script. I feel uncomfortable asserting my limits because I was taught they were selfish. That was a lie. Old script. I'm so bad at social stuff. New script. I prefer depth to breadth, and that's a legitimate way to build a life. Old script. I should want to go. New script. I don't want to go, and that's information worth respecting. Old script. I'm just an introvert. New script. I'm someone whose nervous system needs more recovery time than output time, and I get to design my life around that. Notice the shift? From pathology to preference, from shame to self-knowledge. 5. Inner child bridge. There's a younger version of you who learned that her needs were too much. She's still there, in the quiet moments, waiting for permission she never got. You can give it now. Try speaking directly to her. You didn't deserve to monitor everyone's moods just to feel safe. You were just trying to belong in the only way you knew how. You get to rest now. You get to take up space. You get to want what you want without justifying it. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Say it in the mirror. Write it in a journal. Whisper it before sleep. Your nervous system is listening, and slowly it begins to believe. Here's what begins to shift when you do this work. Peace stops feeling like emptiness. It starts feeling like clarity, a quiet that's full, not hollow. You start to notice the difference between solitude and isolation. One is chosen, the other is imposed. And you realize you've been choosing solitude because it's the only place you could breathe. But now, slowly, you start to venture out, not because you should, but because you're curious about the person who sees you and doesn't ask you to perform, about the gathering that feels nourishing instead of depleting. You begin to love without audition, to show up as you are, and trust that if someone can't meet you there, that's information, not rejection. You start to belong in your own pace. Some weeks are full, some are quiet, and neither is proof of success or failure. You stop apologizing for needing what you need. And home stops being a hiding place. It becomes a choice, a headquarters, the place you return to, not because the world is too much, but because you've decided what's enough. There's a particular kind of quiet that lives in your living room on a Saturday afternoon. Outside, the world hums with plans and gatherings. Inside, you're wrapped in something softer, a blanket, a book, the low murmur of rain against glass. And now, the world asks nothing of you. Not because you're hiding, but because you've learned the difference between rest and retreat, between protecting your peace and shrinking from your life. The phone lights up, an invitation, and beneath your ribs, something different. Not tightness, not obligation, just curiosity, and the freedom to choose, because peace isn't earned by shrinking, it's kept by being whole. A gentle note: this video is educational and reflective, not medical or therapeutic advice. If you're navigating significant anxiety or relational patterns that feel stuck, please consider reaching out to a professional who can walk with you. So here's my question for you. What part of this felt like a door unlocking? Maybe it was a moment of recognition. Maybe it was permission you've been waiting for. Maybe it was just the relief of being seen. Drop a comment, let's reflect together. And if you need to hear this, you're allowed to build a life that feels like home, wherever that is. Take care of your one precious self.